Welcome to Good Grief, the podcast where resilience meets reality. I'm your host, Dr. Christine Malone. In this podcast, we delve deep into the stories of individuals who've triumphed over tragedy, adversity, and trauma. In every episode, we bring you raw and honest narratives from guests who faced life's most challenging moments head on. Through candid conversations, they share their journeys of resilience, shedding light on the strategies, mindset shifts, and support systems that empowered them to rise above their darkest hours. Join us as we explore the profound depths of human resilience and discover how, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and yes, good grief. Okay, listeners, thank you so much for joining me for this episode. My guest today is Nicole Gruendl. She is Korey's mom. She's a life coach for women, a speaker, a student, a project manager, and now a grieving mother on a mission. Nicole's currently working on a book and a workbook called The Loss of My Son, spelled S-U-N. And this is going to be a resource for mothers navigating the unimaginable loss of a son. So, Nicole, thank you for joining us today. Welcome, welcome. If you'd like to introduce anything else about yourself.
I think you did a fantastic job, and I appreciate that. I'm Korey's mom, first and foremost. And I'm working on a couple of projects, as you mentioned, and I'm working on me.
Yes.
And moving forward as a grieving mother.
Yes. Yes. And you know, I have that in common with you, having lost a child. And it's just, if you haven't been there, it's impossible to explain. So I completely hear that. I don't know if I've ever told you, but my oldest son's name is Korey, spelled with a C instead of a K, but I like Korey in my life too. So yeah. Anyway.
No.
Yeah, one of those things that's kind of like, interesting. Not like it's a totally uncommon name, but anyway. So tell us about Korey. What was he like?
He was a vibrant young man, loved by everyone. He made an impact on everybody's life and everybody that he met. I'm picturing him dancing with his cat.
Oh.
And Korey wanted to follow in my footsteps. And at one point in time in our lives, Korey did a lot of work with me in the coaching industry. He broke arrows with his throat. We walked on beds of glass. We laid on beds of nails. And he just thought he was all that in a bag of chips when he went and talked about it. But he had that determination that if he really wanted to do something, he would. And the last thing Korey ever wanted to do was be a burden to anybody or I'm fine. But he was always there for his friends. And that was the biggest thing that I came out with about Korey that I didn't know about his friends and learned from his friends was that he was loved by many and he was their go-to person because he always listened. He always was there to give advice, still gives advice because they remember what he has told them. And he was just that guy. He was an absolutely wonderful young man.
That's awesome.
And I'm so proud to call him my son.
Now tell us, how old was he when he passed away?
28.
Okay. So, and I know, but if you could share your story about, when he passed away, the cause and all that stuff that was all so confusing and up in the air for you and your family.
I was away when Korey passed away. I was camping. And when I was leaving, I talked to him on the phone. And I said, when I get back, we're going to do adult beverages and hang out. And he made a comment of, yes, sooner than later. And I thought that was odd, but that's okay. So I went camping and I talked to him on the Sunday, the day before he passed, and talked to him, texted him, talk about food because we always talked about this great stuff and what we could cook together. And Monday morning came, happened to be 9/11 of 23. That left a mark. And I couldn't breathe. And I'm just like, this is awfully weird because I camp all the time. I'm outdoors and stuff, but I couldn't breathe. My heart, my lungs, I just couldn't catch my breath, and I'm just like, "What the heck is wrong?" So the day came and went, and had a couple of cocktails, we're sitting by the fire, and didn't think anything of it. And the next morning, I got up, and I felt better. I could breathe. And took the dogs out for a walk. And I'm in an area where I can't get any texts, okay? I'm way back. And so I come back to the campsite and get ready to start cooking my lunches and stuff, and I got a text from his dad saying, "Nikki, could you please call me?" And then I got another text from on Facebook from his aunt saying, "There's an emergency, can you please call?" I thought grandma passed away. As the afternoon progressed, I don't have a vehicle, so I can't do anything. So when I had access to a vehicle, I drove to cell phone range and I called Korey. He didn't answer, and I thought that was awfully strange. And then I called his dad. And the words, "Nikki, Korey is dead." And my trigger response was, "You're kidding, right?"
Yeah. That's not funny. Yeah.
No. And he said, "No, I'm not kidding." He says, "Nikki, can you please come home?" That was the beginning of my nightmare. So, time frame wise, I didn't hear about Korey's passing until 24 hours later, or close to it. And there's a guilt there, but it was out of my control. He saved me from being around, is what I always think. Then the process started of taking care of stuff, from going into his apartment and reliving his steps to hearing the stories on how they found him. Because he literally came home, put his wallet on the bed, walked into his bathroom, put the phone on the counter. Whether he got physically ill, I believe he did. He sat down cross-legged, put his head in his hand, and passed away. His heart just stopped. Which brings me to dealing with the funeral home. And they, as in the medical examiner's office, had Korey for 3 days before they released him, which means they were doing extensive, in my knowledge, in my schooling, that
You're trying to determine the cause of death is what they're doing. Is that what you're saying?
correct. So Friday comes and we meet with the funeral director. And I didn't know if I wanted to see Korey or not. And they recommended that I did it because there was an extensive examination.
Mm.
And he said, "My recommendation is you remember him. You saw him a month ago, is to just remember him." And we cooked, we had lunch. Oh, wait a minute. I cooked for him. He ate. Uh, and we had some pretty special moments that day. He shared some of his personal stuff, and I left, and that was the last time I saw him, was in August 2023. So with the medical examiner, we waited and waited for a response. And I had no communication with them at that time because his father was communicating with them. and on his wait for us to call you list. So we handled the celebration of life, and I went on a trip to Montana. I regrouped, handled all his financials. Meanwhile, days are progressing, turning into weeks. And once a week, his dad would call and say, well, we sent it to the state, or we're waiting for a response from the state, and we're waiting for this, and we haven't heard anything. And at one point in time, this was prior to his birthday, they were getting rude, and we were bothering them.
The medical examiner's office.
Correct. Like, just wait until you hear from us type of attitude. So Korey's birthday was on Thanksgiving that year. And I waited until after that to contact them again, or I should say his dad. Christmas, the first birthday, I didn't stay home for Christmas. I traveled to another country and went to see my family in Canada. Meanwhile, right before then, I was still waiting, and I thought, this is asinine. All the while, I thought, what am I going to do with my time?
Right.
Because I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I signed up for school.
Mhm.
And started with the medical coding and billing, and this is how I met you.
Yes.
What a blessing. So starting school in January, I wasn't able to go back to work at that point in time. So I'm still waiting for answers. But that's when I took charge of the situation.
Mhm.
And I said, okay, this is asinine. And they literally told me, well, we didn't even know who you were. So that's why we never contacted you. You weren't even in our books.
Had they been in contact with his dad, though?
Mhm.
Oh,
No, well, they didn't really call his dad.
right.
They
Okay.
never called his dad. And they didn't call his dad after this. But my biggest question was why, if they had so many questions and if they were going to the state, why didn't they do an investigation, and why didn't they reach out to talk to his parents? They never once, other than the immediate questions, when they found Korey and the investigator was there, not once did they reach out to his friends, to me, to his dad after, and ask about his lifestyle and what could be.
Mhm. Family history, anything like that. Yeah.
100%, not one question. So then I started to poke the bear. This is why I'm called Mama Bear. So then I was speaking to the office manager, and I was getting some information by the people that were with Korey that night. The office support officers and Korey's dad's girlfriend, who is an RN and has been. And I said, I just need some answers. That was when I was accused of being influenced by outside sources.
Because you're asking questions about how your son passed?
Yeah. And I said, pardon me? She goes, well, I just feel that your tone is a little bit different than when we talked last week. So in my little defensive mechanism, the fixer, as Korey would call me, Mom, you're just going to take care of everything. You fix things. And that was the beginning of a whole new chapter of Mama Bear really came out. That was when I met one of their associates who was the family liaison in the medical office. She's a dear friend. And I don't believe it was geared up and they had intentions of us becoming friends. I believe that she was planted there as a diversion.
Hmm.
And that just makes me more angry. Because people thought I was stupid. People knew that I was taking a medical class, that office, and they were putting their back up against the wall because they knew I was going to dig. And I did. By this time, it's been about 6 months, and I was at an event with his dad and other friends and stuff, and I come to find out that the medical examiner called his dad's friend to get some information about when he found him, was there anything? And I'm going, so he was devastated. And I'm going, why are you not calling me? Why are you not calling his father? And they're calling the person that found him and just tore him apart. And I'm just like, how dare you? How dare you upset a person in that manner when I'm in full communication with you? He has nothing to do with this. Bless him. And I can't take that pain away from him. So I would talk, and I've got records of it, and I talk to them over and over again and saying that they're doing and running all kinds of tests and paying it out of their own pocket because she was a contractor. And I'm going, oh, okay. So I just abided by what they were telling. They were the professionals.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
trusted them. And meanwhile, I'm trying to keep income coming. I'm trying to live my life. And again, I didn't know how that looked anymore. I talked to him every day. I was still dealing with some financials. I had people trying to collect money, and I've got all of these pressure and this coming in and that coming in. And I'm dealing with somebody who I thought was in my corner. So 9/23/2024 came, the 1 year, and I went camping again. And I couldn't do it. We got chased out by a fire. So that place, as much as I love it, is a little bit tainted for me. So I came home and immersed myself in school, in a new job, and started pushing even more to find out why. Because I've got people coming and going, and they're going, this doesn't make any sense, Nicole. And I said, I don't have an answer. You know, from my studies, from doing research, from asking people, and they're going, he just doesn't sit down and die. There's got to be, right from the get-go, I was told that there was no symptoms, no direct the body wasn't talking to her. There was no physical signs, no toxicology. And by this time, I got the toxicology report back from the state, and they pushed that right to the 6 months mark, and there was a negative result. Well, come to find out, I know why now. Back and forth with phone calls, back and forth with information, trying to dig up the information, and come to find out that that medical examiner got fired and her team got fired. And of course, I can't disclose that, but it was pretty much due to negligence. And that's when my whole perception of things really changed about this woman. And I will not give her the respect to call her a doctor.
I know they would have had to put something on that death certificate for cause. What did they put down if they're still apparently uncertain or telling you they're uncertain?
That's exactly what it is. It was undetermined
Undetermined. Okay.
for over a year. Well, a year and a half. So the second birthday comes and goes. And I knew that I was moving forward with school into a new year this year. and that I was moving up in my job. And I thought, I need some closure somewhere. And this is the only one that I can control. So I wanted to put a closure on Korey's case. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. I sent the medical examiner a text and I requested closure on the case, that I want finalization. I need to move on with my life. And if we never have a response, that's the way it is to be, So I didn't get a response for 24 hours. And I asked my officer support, who has become a friend, and she said, give her 24 hours. So the next morning, of course, I didn't get a response, and I called her. And I requested the cease and desist. Let's just stop it. And she said, well, I would still like to send it off to genetic reporting into the university.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, you were supposed to do that 6 months ago. I got our documentation of it. Now I'm hearing the inconsistencies.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, he had fluid in his lungs. And so I really want to send it off to the genetics. And I said, pardon me? When were you going to tell me that part? In my world, you would have noticed that in the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, well, yeah, let's just leave this to the professionals. I just went, oh. Now I'm just being overridden and she's being condescending.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And at this point, I literally couldn't breathe. I couldn't think anymore. And I literally just hung up. I said, whatever. And I called my support officer and I called another friend, and they both, who have extensive information regarding the case, they said, yeah, we don't know anything about fluid in his lungs. So I sent her another text and I said, if this is not mandatory, this test that you claim to have done twice already, if it's not mandatory, I still want to put a stop to it. I know now enough that if he had fluid in his lungs, that it had a cardio implication.
Right.
Association. So that was still not good enough for me, because now I was going to dig it further. So I called the new medical examiner in their office, and I said, my name is Nicole Gruendl, and I'm Korey's mom. You may be familiar with the case. And there was silence at the end of the other line. And his exact words were, we are all familiar with Korey's case. And my heart sank. I asked him his name, and I shared exactly what I just shared with you. And he said, I don't understand, and none of us understand why she is doing what she is doing to you. And I said, you have the report or any documentation there? And he says, yeah. I said, okay. The report wasn't complete yet, but there's all the documentation since Korey passed. And I requested a cease and desist from him. And because she was a contractor, he had to go to his superior. And I said, well, you have the office manager, the new one. And I said, she is under my direct order, because I'm the probate and his mom, to not send off any samples requested by this medical examiner. And he says, we can do that. And I said, I want to report tomorrow. And he says, I will talk to her. Not but 15 minutes later, I get a phone call from the medical examiner in question. And she was as sickly sweet as pie and saying, oh, of course, Nicole, we don't need to do any more tests. I can get you the report. I am so sorry. Oh, and by the way, did you know one of his arteries was smaller than the other? And those words just shattered me. Because she would have noticed that first thing when she opened him up. I hung up. And it was like the Band-Aid being ripped off of all the healing that I did. And without being too blunt, it was like they ripped off the Band-Aid, they ripped off the scab, ripped off so many layers of healing. Because now I know how much she lied. Because she had an answer in the autopsy on why he passed away, and she drug us through the mud for a year and a half, telling us and lying to us about not having any symptoms, not having any signs. He didn't show anything. So everything that I had gone through in the last year and a half was all lies. And that put my friendship with my friend in question because was she a setup? I knew that was not to be true because her and I had, we all lost a child. And so her and I shared stories. And you can't make that stuff up. It's not a lie. So then I have to tell his dad. His dad was on site when they found Korey. And his last image of Korey was on the gurney. So it just ripped apart everything in our world that we worked so hard on moving forward. And finding out the lies. So I had to process all of that. And work. And school. And that's when I had the conversation with you on digging even a little deeper. So I spoke to my support officer and they led me to another closure. And I spoke to legal counsel that's in the same town as this all transpired. I gave them the short version, the Reader's Digest version, and the attorney said, absolutely, I want to talk to you, which is a good and a really bad sign. So I shared my story with her, and she requested the medical report that I got.
But you hadn't received that yet, or you did receive that already?
I had received it. It sat on my counter for a month. Maybe longer. And I got it in the mail and I put it on the counter and it never moved. Because in my mind, I know he passed away and he left us from heart failure. Yet 2 days before, I have a video of him literally dancing with his cat. Because that's who he was. I sent her the report and all the documentation that I had from the medical examiner. All that information from the medical examiner, and I got a call 4 days later. And even though I had great documentation and there was information there that was pertinent and that I didn't read, She said, "Did you know that there was a tort for your cause?" And I said, "No." She says, "It's a tort of outrage. It is regarding how the professionals use vindictive, malicious actions to cause emotional damage."
Purposely.
Right. And she said, even though that's what she did, we cannot prove that she did it maliciously because of all the documentation and whatnot that you have. She sugarcoated everything.
Oh,
She said, "You have a case, but it would be extremely difficult to prove." And she buried herself so deep that you can't touch it. And in her words, she says, "That is really disappointing because I really wanted to take that woman down."
yeah. She knew. This attorney knew.
Right. There's a history
Oh,
with this medical examiner, and I got caught in it. And here we are. Why people?
yeah. The why question is always the hardest one to answer, usually the one that doesn't get answered, right? I mean, been there myself. I'd like to know why. I can tell you when, I can tell you how, I can tell you what happened, but I don't know why. The why is hard because if people aren't going to come forward and tell you the truth, which of course if they're covering themselves, they aren't, then that why just sits there
Right.
a wound that you have to work through.
And everybody, when I spoke to his friends, and that was sharing it with his friends, who I had no idea how many friends he had. And my final call to the medical examiner's office, and I said, she would have known by the time, and he stopped me and said she would have known right away. There would have been some physical damage to the heart, and it is by law that they need to send off the samples, which she did. She sent off the tissue samples for his lungs and have them returned to the medical examiner's office within 2 weeks. And she did. It's all documented. It's all time-stamped. We as a family and friends would have known why Korey passed away by the time the day before of his celebration of life. And it took a year and a half for me to dig for it.
It's unconscionable, Nicole. I mean, I know you and I've talked about this offline, um, but I can't. I mean, to add that insult to injury and pouring salt on the wound for a person who's supposed to be in a support role. I mean, even as a medical examiner, they have to deal with the family, and that's something they are supposed to have compassion and empathy. And this person just had none, had none of that. I mean, it makes no sense, right? I mean, there makes no sense whatsoever, and that's. I mean, I get the whole tort of outrage. I'm like, this was straight up abusive. It was being cruel to a grieving mother for no apparent reason, right? It's like, was she making extra money off of this? Was she getting paid by the hour? And I mean, those. It's like this whole stuff. It's like there's zero. I mean, even if she didn't like you, you're being pushy. Whatever. Is no reason for this whole not allowing the closure part of it, which again is just I'm so sorry that that attorney doesn't see a way to make it work because I too would love to hear that this person has been stopped.
Right.
Right. I mean, that would be, I mean, in my case, my son was injured due to medical malpractice, and my goal was to make sure that the people who hurt him stopped, that it wasn't going to happen to somebody else. I couldn't bring my son back. Your son's not coming back. But what can you do to make sure that this same thing doesn't happen to another family, another mom? I mean,
Right.
that's been your mission.
Right.
Tell us about your book and your workbook. So I know you're starting to work on that. We were talking about that before we started recording. So what's the point to it? What's the plan to it? Who's it for? That kind of thing.
It, right after he passed, the title came to me, and it's The Loss of My Son, because he was the light of my life. And so I am spelling it son, S-U-N. And it's geared to support grieving mothers losing their son. And can be used for, we're part of a group that we don't want to be part of. And I want to support Korey, and I want to support other mothers who are going through this tragedy or this type of tragedy. It's our purpose and it's our mission to support others.
Mhm.
It's in our DNA.
Yeah, it's that sense of I call this podcast my silver lining, right? It's like talking to people and sharing their stories. All the places where people are listening to this podcast, I know that helps people, and it gives me a sense of purpose and that silver lining to what happened to me. And I know that's the case with a lot of my guests, where it's like I just want to tell my story. Some people writing a book about it, whatever it might be, because I want to help other people in the same shoes. I want to feel like I've made a difference. Something positive come
Right.
this horrible event. I mean, it's impossible to think about it being positive, but something helpful and positive that means that it didn't just all happen for zero benefit whatsoever, right? That's kind of what I would take from it. So you got a workbook going with it too. So what's the workbook? Is it kind of like a journaling? What's the workbook going to be about?
And that's exactly what it is. It's going to be incorporating part of my story, incorporating some of the tools. How did I get through this one day that I just didn't want to get out of bed? What can I do, and what can I bring to the table from what I've learned, and give and create these tools so that mothers can write out, they can listen, they can dump and find the support that they need, which in this part of my journey, the support professional wise has been very, very difficult to come by. And so able to realize that there are people out there, lean on your friends, lean on your family. And even though it's so hard on the people that surround you, they are there for you. They may not know what to say,
Mhm.
but all they have to do is listen. All they have to do is give you a hug, hold your hand, pick up the phone and say, do you need to talk? And even though you say no, they're there to listen.
Keep asking. Don't take no as the final answer, right?
Right.
It might be no today, but it may not be no.
Right. Those
I
are
guess that the book and the workbook could be incredibly useful for people who don't know what to do and say.
right.
Right? I mean, my good friend lost their child or whatever it might be, and I just don't even know what to do or say. That kind of a person who might be like, "Wow, this is extremely helpful because it's helping me realize what's going on in mom's mind." Because as you mentioned, if you haven't been in this chair, you have no idea what it feels like. So you don't know what's in my mind. So the book can help you understand that, and then the workbook can help you understand what are there. Let me help you find these resources that I
Right.
now know about. Let me whatever, those tools, because I know, as we were talking about before I started recording, a lot of people, they wanna fix things, right? And it's like, you can't fix this. This is not fixable. There's no fixing. What you can do is help. You can help,
Yeah.
and helping is listening. It is, doing all those things you were just talking about. And it's j it that is a way of helping. It's a way of doing something. It's even though it doesn't fix the main issue, it helps us get through what that main issue is. right? So I think that would be a really important tool, I would think, for someone who, again, I don't know what to do or say about to my coworker, my sister, whatever, but now I get these tools that I know what I could do or say, or what I shouldn't do and shouldn't say, those types of things. Yeah.
Right. One of my friends, I talked to him about it, and he called me. First, he sent me a text. This is about a month and a half ago, and he just sent me this random text with this image, and it said the bond between a mother and a son, and it was an image, and it's a little poem. And so he called me after that, and we shared, and he says, "I just want you to stop it." Says, "I don't want you to stop grieving. I don't want you to stop hurting. I don't want you to stop this, but I want you to stop being hard on yourself for doing that."
Mhm.
So maybe that's what the people around you are meaning,
Mhm.
and and trust them enough that it's okay. Even that though they're uncomfortable, it's okay for you to cry.
Yep.
It's okay for you to be vulnerable, and that's what I want to share in that workbook and in my story, is that it's okay to grieve
Mhm.
and be yourself.
Healthy. You have
It's
to.
healthy.
You have to. You can't hold that side. It's not. No, it doesn't, it needs an outlet. So, yes, I completely agree with you.
Right.
I completely agree with you. Well, I look forward to reading your book and workbook when it comes out. I've been on this journey for a while, but I love reading other people's work on what worked for you and so on. In my work as a teacher, I get people will ask me things about grief and grieving in certain classes that I teach. And one of the biggest questions that I have had asked of me is, when someone's lost someone, is when am I going to feel like I did before this happened? And the answer, of course, is never,
Never.
because this happened. You're a different person.
Right.
So how do you do that? How do you become that new person and be comfortable with that new person? Because you're never gonna go back to what it was like before. I can't fix
Right.
that, right? So I think that would be a great your tool would be a great way to help people really realize that and become comfortable with who they are and know that it's okay to grieve. You must, in certain, I mean, there's just no people who aren't responding are the ones I always worry about, right? It's like, I'm not seeing I'm worried. I worry about them. I'd be like, "I'm very worried about you. So
Yeah.
can we talk about this? And you can talk to me about anything," and that sort of thing. So I think that's what's gonna really help come out of that book and workbook as well.
That it's okay.
Mhm.
It's I can't say that it's going to be okay for everyone because I
It's
can't.
yeah. Okay is a subjective word, first of all.
Correct.
It's like, I don't know what okay even means. It's like fine or fair is another one. It's like,
Correct.
words that I'm like, "No, no, that doesn't really
Yeah.
fall."
No.
But
Correct.
yes, but I agree, and I think for women, I don't mean to be sexist here, but for women, we take on caring for everybody else, right? So we can last, right? It's like, I'm gonna help all these other people that are dealing with these different things, and that helps to distract me, like the job and the school can help to distract, but it's like, I have got to take care of me because 'cause I'm
Right.
number 1, gotta take care of me. Because if I don't take care of me, I can't help all these other people I wanna help. And that's, I think, a huge lesson for especially for women to learn that it's okay. Grieving is okay. It's normal. It's natural. None of us are getting out of this life alive. So we're all going to go through something, hopefully not the horrible experience of losing a child, but we're going to go through something and you have to be able to maneuver that part of
Right.
life and really, come out of it healthy, happy, right? I mean,
Right.
just different.
It's just different. It's a whole different journey. And if I can if Korey and I can, with our story
Mhm.
and our purpose, help, if not but one mother,
Yep.
it'll make
All the world's difference.
all the world. Yeah. It's
Yeah. No, I completely 100% understand what you're saying. So I do. Nicole, thank you so much for sharing Korey with us today and for your story. I know you and I talk offline because we have a relationship outside of this world. and I'll be talking to you soon. But I just want you to know how much I appreciate you coming on this podcast and sharing what I know is not comfortable to share and painful and brings up a lot of memories, but it also helps other people. Your books are going to help other people. And again, that's your and Korey's legacy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Good Grief. We hope that stories shared today have inspired and empowered you on your own journey of resilience. If you want to dive deeper into the themes of trauma, tragedy, and survival, be sure to check out my memoir, The Day I Became the Spider Killer, a memoir of trauma, tragedy, and survival. In this book, I shared my own raw and honest experiences, offering insights and strategies for overcoming life's toughest challenges. You can purchase the book on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or listen to it on Audible. Your support helps us continue to bring these powerful stories to light and spread a message of hope and resilience. Stay tuned for more incredible stories on our next episode. Until then, remember, even in the face of life's toughest trials, there can be light, growth, and good grief.